Alrighty, cool. So, hi guys, I'm Rip Chip. You may have recognized me from the previous run that I just did. We're doing something totally different now. I've done Dark Forces for Kessel Run a number of times, and it's all been standard categories. So today I'm going to do something totally different. We're going to be doing a randomizer run of Dark Forces. There is a program called Dark Forces Showcase that has a ton of cool features to like do things like preview maps and stuff, but one feature it includes is randomization, and it has a surprising amount of like complexity to it for what you can randomize. So we're going to be doing a playthrough or a run on hard difficulty. We're going to be going for all the secrets, and the reason we're doing that is because it gives us an excuse to look for more items, but also because if we just did a regular hard run, it wouldn't be very long. It wouldn't be that hard. But for reference, for as far as what we randomize, we are going to be shuffling the level order. We're going to be shuffling the item pool and the enemy pool. So enemy and item locations will be the same, but what item is there is going to be different. And it's using a balanced pool so that it basically has the same amount of stuff as the base game, and that's just to make sure that the game is going to be beatable. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I have a wonderful co-commentator with me that I will reintroduce, Covert Muffin.
Hi! So I actually have speedrun this game before. I haven't played the randomizer itself, but I performed this for GDQ, and that was on Rip Chip's couch for this past GDQ where he performed it on stage. And yeah, so I'm here. I've never played the randomizer. But yeah, what we will say, Chad, is that we have done some light vetting, especially in the early game, to just make sure that we can get into the run. So we're not going to see like a dark trooper that we have to punch to death on the first level.
Yeah, thank Christ. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it though. The first mission is it says seed, that's just letting you know the seed ID for the randomizer, and then we're gonna select it and it's gonna show us what our first mission is, which is going to be Ramsey's Head, which is really not that bad of a starting level. Level order is very important in randomizer, because sometimes there are levels, and we'll talk about this in time, that are way harder.
Rip Chip, can you restart your Discord stream? They just moved us to a different voice channel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
No worries. Alright, cool. Just let me know when you're back so I can jump in.
I am good to go.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start this in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so one thing that's interesting about... Oh, sweet! We got the assault cannon right off the bat. That's wonderful. So, one thing with this is that we're going to be spending a lot of time actually going out of our way to try and get certain items, and that's going to require us to go off the beaten path that we would normally go for. We'd explore areas that we typically wouldn't look at in a speed run. First things first, I need to find some TVs. There's a couple of items that are more or less like your workhorse weapons for the run. The main thing we want to find is thermal detonators and the blaster rifle right off the bat, because those are super helpful. We just got blasted out of the air, that's fine. Ideally, we want to find things like 1-ups scattered throughout each level. Oh, there's one right there, that's perfect. Nice. And ideally, if we can, we want to get out of every level with more than 3 lives, because if you have less than 3 lives, it'll automatically reset it to 3. So if we had less than that, we could, if we have more than that, we can go into another level with more resources to work with. Alright, so that is unfortunate. That's the Trandoshans here, they have concussion rifles. There are a lot of them, and they all are very dangerous. And we're going to be using a lot of different speed tech just to obviously speed up the process. And there's certain items like TDs and mines that we want to have so that we can do certain skips through levels just to make the run a lot smoother. But because of the danger of the sheer number of enemies and stuff, we actually might have to do some sections of levels like safer or in like a intended route versus doing a speedrun route, because we don't want to take too much damage. Alright, so I'm clearing out this hallway in particular just because there's things like a Gamorrean that could potentially kill me. Alright. And there are certain... Oh, there we go. There's a good one.
Oh, no.
We've already got our first Dark Trooper. That's not good. He's in a very bad spot, so we are gonna just TD jump out of there. And a lot of this is you have to do some improvisation to get past things that are less than ideal. For example, you know, a Dark Trooper being right there. And I am going a little out of my way to see if there's maybe any extra lives. It doesn't look like it, but that's fine. Sometimes you get really, really good item pulls, and sometimes you just get really unlucky. He, luckily, is in a place where I don't have to worry too much about him. I do have to get up here, though. There we go. Okay, cool. We got past him. Oh, there's another one. Wonderful.
Oh, no!
Okay. So yeah, that's an example of things you don't want to run into frequently. Dark Troopers are very dangerous, especially if you don't have a ton of tools to deal with them. We do have the assault cannon, but we're really going to be saving it for special occasions. I think this is one of those occasions where we have to kind of go for this, because I am running out of lives very quickly.
Yeah. So honestly, it's really nice that we have the assault cannon here. Like, this is really scary now that Ripchip's on 0 lives. So like, if they take another death, then they'll have to restart the mission all over again.
Yeah, which is one of the nice things about Rando is, like, if that does happen, usually you can come up with a better, like, formula or plan of attack.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a lot of really bad enemies here, which is kind of unfortunate. Okay, there's a 1-up there. That's perfect. Okay, that was very lucky. If we didn't have that 1-up, we probably would have been in trouble because our health is very low. But luckily, in most situations, there's going to be at least like a revive or a 1-up that'll appear for you. So you don't have to worry too much. There's going to be some areas that I like to call jackpot areas. And I call them that because they have a lot of item drops, and there's usually going to be a number of like really helpful things in those, just because of how the randomization works. Alright. Still have to get a couple more secrets, so I'm gonna go out of my way to get these shields. Ah, shield supercharge, perfect.
Oh, nice.
We are in the clear now. Alright, cool. So, important items throughout Randomizer. Shield supercharge is a very big one because it obviously just keeps you from dying. Revives are good just for keeping you alive. 1-ups are great because you want to have as many lives as you can going into the really hard levels. And that's not saying that this wasn't really hard, but normally there are levels that are a lot more intimidating. So we're going on to the second mission, which is robotics. This is good because you want to go into this mission with TDs. If you start your randomizer run with this level, there's a chance you might not get TDs right away, and that would require some searching. But we're going to get these secrets right here. We're doing pretty good on weapons as far as what we've picked up. The main thing is that I just don't have a lot of blaster ammo. That's just because I had to fight for my life in the previous level. And we're going to do a little trick here that we use in the all secret speedrun where we peek over the edge to have it count as collecting. Normally you might think, oh, well, why wouldn't you just go down there to see if there's anything useful down there? And that's just because those secrets are very out of the way, so we're gonna avoid them entirely.
So are ammo drops from enemies going to be the same?
Yeah, like, they're the same.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if that's actually a setting. Oh my god, dude, there's too many of these in dead spots.
They heard me talking about them during the intro, and they were like, okay, Muffin, well, we'll show you.
Yeah. Obviously, as you can probably guess, the Phase 2 Dark Troopers are some of the most dangerous enemies in the game. So we want to hopefully not run into them in closed-off spaces because there's a good chance they can just completely deplete our health. Those enemies and Gamorreans are pretty dangerous. Another fact about the enemy spawns is that one factor that's part of the enemy spawn pool is the locations of barrels and mines. So it is entirely possible that we could have a mine spawn in a normal enemy area, and it could be in an area we can't see. The only enemy spawns that are the same are the ones that are tied to the logic for beating the level. So like, when we hit this third sequence charge, there is going to be a Dark Trooper. And that's just to make sure that the game doesn't soft lock.
Yeah, makes sense.
So luckily we have the assault cannon, which makes dealing with these guys very, very simple. Normally in a speedrun you would just use a blaster rifle with a weapon supercharge. Alright, so that's good. Yep, we saw Kel Dragon on the first level, and it will not be the only time you see an awkwardly placed Kel Dragon, I promise.
Yep.
There's also a couple of spots where enemy spawns, like for turrets and stuff, that are really not where enemies are supposed to be, so they will be often like wedged into the floor or into the ceiling, so they can't really move, but they're still in the way.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. Alright, let's see if we get something good here. It'd be great if it was a 1-up. Nope, there's literally nothing down here. That's great.
Oh, no.
Alright. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I accidentally hit the timer there. Undo that. There we go. Okay, so the next level we're doing is research.
Oh, nice.
This is a fun level. This is one of those levels that usually isn't too bad, especially if you get it later on in the run, because there is a lot of wide open space. I just got launched into the sky. I didn't think that would happen. There was a mine that blew up behind me and it blew up a barrel in front of me. That's fun. That's just hilarious. Anyways, so research is a fun level for an example of going off the beaten path, because there's this big area here. This is one of those jackpot spots usually. I got a lot of shields and I got a weapon supercharge, which is nice. And that's not somewhere where we'd ever go because it's not a secret area. It's just another part of the level. But it has so many item drops that it's very much worth it to check it out, especially this early on in the run. Oh, we got another weapon supercharge.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes this will be too generous with the same power-ups, which is funny, but also just not great.
Yeah, I just love that, like, I just love that barrels count as enemies, so that...
Yeah, that has the potential to be really bad, too, because there are some levels, like Fuel Station, that have entire strips that are barrels, and those can get replaced with regular enemies, so you can have a hallway full of Kell Dragons, or Boba Fett. Fun fact about the item spread for the enemies. So, as I've said, it's balanced based around the default amount of enemies in the game, and that means there is exactly one Boba Fett lying around. So we could very easily run into Boba Fett in a very inconvenient spot. Alright, so I also just respawned there. I'm doing this using the remastered version of Dark Forces, and the main reason for that is, one, setting it up is a lot easier for randomizer, but also because the respawn function makes some of the scarier sections a little bit more manageable. You can technically do this with any version of the game, but it's just, this is the one I prefer to use for randomizer. Alright, we got a lot of really tough enemies, so hopefully we get lucky and there's not a whole lot of dangerous stuff here. There's some mines. Okay, there's a revive in there, perfect. That just makes everything so much better.
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes you get really lucky like that.
Yeah, so a revive fully fills the health back to the cap of 100, and then also brings the armor all the way back up to 200. So we saw Rip Chip in single-digit health with no armor go all the way up to 100, 200, which is like really, really massive.
And it should also be mentioned that that kind of thing is unfortunately luck-based, so there is always the chance that you could just be unlucky and get something completely useless, like ice cleats instead. But again, since we're so early on, like, it's worth it to look in certain areas, like, in detail, because a lot of the secrets in the speedrun we just don't pick up because there's no need to. But because there's so much going on here, it's more of a quest for survival than anything. But we're doing good on shields and stuff, so we can actually do, like, TV jumps like this.
Nice.
Alright. I'm hoping that getting all of these Trandoshans right off the bat is going to make the late game way easier, but that's asking a lot.
I believe.
Yeah, Trandoshans, another fact about them is they're using the concussion rifle, which, as far as I know, is the only hit scan weapon in the game. So they can be very dangerous if they have a clear line of sight on you, because unlike the blaster rifles, which have projectile shots, those ones will pretty much always hit you. And since we are, doing good right now, I'm gonna just check up here. Again, another area we normally would not go to. Oh, there's a revive. That's gonna be great for going into the next level because I'll have full health and shields. Alright, cool.
Yeah, so like an important note that Rip Chip just brought up is that like certain levels will give you that full heal back to full. However, most levels actually do not fully heal you back up. You have to carry over your inventory as well as your health. Yeah, so like getting revived there and going full back to full armor and health is like really, really massive. Yeah,
for sure. And like if your health is below a certain point, you will always start the level with a guaranteed 100 shields and 100 health. But if you can get more, obviously that's better.
Yes.
Especially because of, you know, all the things that I'm currently having to contend with here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a nice little thing is when you do respawn after death or using the respawn function, you have a few seconds where you are invulnerable to shield damage, and that part is very important because you can avoid taking damage from explosions and blasters and stuff. Ooh, one-ups. So these hallways typically will have like a couple of useful items here. Again, these are areas we normally would never go into, like doing a speed run, but there is a chance that they could have something helpful. Oh, alright, and the big thing is if we see a 1-up and it's not super out of the way to get, we're always going to want to go for that, because we want as many lives as we can.
Right. That makes sense.
Oh, these interesting enemy. Oh my god, there's like 4 mines here.
Oh my god.
So in closed off areas like this, luckily I can see the mines. If you can't see them, there's a good chance in some spawns that there will be a mine that you just get blindsided by. And again, since this is a quest for survival, I'm actually gonna opt out of doing the sequence break here and just do the normal platforming, just because I don't want to have to deal with whatever's down there, and just so I can have as much health as I can going into the next section.
Right.
Ooh, that was unlucky. Alright. This is another potential jackpot area because there's a lot of items in this area normally.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a 1-up, which is nice. And we have 6 lives, which is good. There's a couple of levels, and when we get to them, I will talk about this. There are certain levels where you want to get as many items as possible for. Executor is a fairly basic level, so we don't have to worry too much, but there's also a lot of jackpot areas and a lot of item checks that are not super out of the way to get to.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily it's not like a super hard level. Even with like certain enemy spawns, it's very manageable. Alright.
Nice.
Got this guy. And I'm just checking those hallways in case I see an extra life or something like that. Also, if you can hear my guinea pigs in the background, they are just rooting me on. Just, you know, they're good little fellas. I have 6 of them in my room, so.
Woo!
Oh my god, there's a mine right in the seat. That's exactly what I mean. There is the chance that I can just get blindsided by a mine, and that's usually pretty bad, so... Oh, hey, it's Spike. He's very much in the way, so we actually have to take care of him. I don't even remember what I was gonna say because that threw me off so badly.
Yeah. You were talking about the camouflage of the mines.
Yes, so one thing about hard difficulty is one of their annoying ways of trying to make the game arbitrarily harder is they put a bunch of mines in areas you can't normally see. It's very annoying, and it's more of a level memorization thing than it is a skill thing, but... Alright, so now we're going to Anowit. Anowit's pretty fun. This is a pretty easy level, because you can skip almost the entirety of it. We're gonna get the few secrets we have to get, but...
I imagine this is another one where it's like, I hope I have thermal detonators for this.
Yeah, for sure. And like, the nice thing about this level is since we have to get the secrets, and this is another reason why going for all secrets is ideal, is that there's a good chance you're gonna run into either a thermal detonator or a Grand, so you can get them to do this. And there's certain levels where obviously you want to have certain items to do sequence breaks, like this is a big one right here, because this skips pretty much the entire level. Right. Being able to do that thermal detonator jump. And another one is in Imperial City, there's a sequence break where we kill Boba Fett at the beginning of the level. And if you don't have mines or any explosive ammo at all, like sometimes you have to go out of your way to find it. And it seems like it's out of the way to do that and backtrack, but with how much that skips in the later half of the level, it's very necessary to do that. There's a lot of interrogation droids. So these enemies are annoying. They have a melee attack that has an unbelievably large range, and it doesn't do a ton of damage, but the fact is you're constantly taking damage, so you have to be very careful about those guys.
Interesting.
Alright,
nice dodge there.
Thanks. Oh, hey, it's another Dark Trooper. We're just gonna get out of here. Alrighty, so that was...
there's another one.
Oh, shoot, I aborted the mission on accident. That was a...
Whoops!
Oh, shit.
Oh, do you have to do the entire
I have to do it again. So we're going to just clear this normally since you saw me get all the secrets. What happened there is very odd. I think I just got a little too ahead of myself there, and that's fine. there wasn't really like a whole lot of important things I picked up here, so we're just gonna clear this really quick. You guys saw me clear all the secrets, so.
So yeah, so basically what happens is the same sort of menuing in order to go to the next mission is the same as aborting the mission. So just like quitting back to the menu. So Ripchip didn't, for whatever reason, didn't get the victory condition, maybe just a little bit early on the menuing. And so they accidentally aborted the mission instead of finishing it out.
Yeah,
but
luckily this happened on
Anowit.
Anowit, which is a very short level, so like it's not that consequential. Alrighty, next mission. There we go. Alright, so now we're on to Narshada. Narshada is a level that can have some very potentially dangerous enemy spawns. There's a lot of space, but there's also a lot of enemy locations. So we're gonna have to approach a lot of areas very cautiously. We're luckily well equipped, so we can actually do things like, you know, some of the sequence breaks and TD jumps that you normally would go for in a speed run. But if you get something like this early, obviously you gotta play a little more conservatively. Was that a... No, that was just a regular shield, okay. Now, if we find a shield supercharge, it's gonna make this level super easy. Alright, cool. That was lucky. Just happens to be sitting in that corner. I promise this is not a randomizer. So this is gonna make things a lot better, and the fact that those enemies up there with barrels is kind of nice too, because I don't have to worry about them shooting me. Yeah. Oh, another shield supercharge. Perfect. This is a very generous. Wait, what? Hold on.
Wait.
That was weird. All right. Hopefully that's not actually an issue, but.
Okay. Yeah, it's your supercharge is gone for whatever reason.
So it's visibly not there anymore, but it's still active. That's a new one for me. I've never seen that happen before.
You said the thing.
I said the thing. Alrighty. So we're gonna actually. Normally we would just respawn here, but we're gonna actually do a TD jump to backtrack, and that's just because we want to keep the shield supercharge as long as we can. You're gonna have a lot of situations where you actually opt for a slightly different route because you don't want to lose, you know, certain power-ups and stuff. Because whenever you respawn with your inventory, but you do not keep your power-ups when you do the respawn.
Okay.
Which is honestly it's fair, kind of a balanced thing to have that, but
yeah.
All right. Just going out of our way to get this one. We're gonna peek this elevator and hopefully not go down with it. There we go. Okay, cool.
Nice.
Oh, it's my favorite weapon, the Geron Fusion Cutter. All right. So this weapon, is always funny when you pick it up. It seems like it should be a really helpful weapon because it has this alt fire that shoots like a shotgun, basically, which can do a lot of damage, and I say "can" with big quotations. Sometimes the projectiles that it shoots will just pass by enemies and not actually hit them. And the other thing that sucks about it is that the alt fire for the fusion cutter uses 8 units of ammo, which is an extremely large amount of ammo. For reference, the most useful weapon, both casually and like for randomizer, is the concussion rifle, because it basically acts as a miniature BFG, and that only uses 4 ammo, and it can attack for good damage and attack multiple enemies. Yeah. Alright, so we're going to the end of this, which is good. There's a barrel on the bridge. We gotta watch out for that. Alright. Now, this is that room where the objective is one of the ones if you get Keldragon, it's really funny. But we're going on to Gromus. Gromus is got a lot of closed-off hallways, so this is one of those levels where we kind of hope that we don't run into too many, like, melee-based enemies, or, God forbid, we run into Boba Fett. That would be really bad. Yeah. But the good news is we have 7 lives, so we obviously can go a little faster if we want to. This is not a level I typically am worried about. There is, as I said, other levels, like, when we get to them, we'll talk about them, that are what I call the really, truly challenging levels for randomizer. Those are, like, the ones that you actually have to be very careful in. And those are the ones you want to have extra lives for, because you could get very unlucky, and 3 lives can, if you play very slow and carefully, can sometimes be enough, but you want to be as prepared as possible because you don't know what you're going to get into.
Right. That makes sense.
Alright, so far this has been a very tame level, which is nice. Now, this first area down here can sometimes have a lot of really
Nice.
bad enemies. I think I've walked past those barrels very carefully.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
something we haven't really talked a lot about yet is like just kind of like core movement. So like in this game, you have constant ice physics. So basically you don't stop instantaneously. So if you're moving forward or backward or sideways and you just let go, you're gonna slide for a bit. So Rip Chip is like, in that platform, in those platforming sections, Rip Chip was very careful to just make sure that they were not going too fast so that they could land on the exact platforms in the exact spaces. So he made a lot of those really difficult platforming sections look a lot easier than they actually are.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Dark Forces versus like some of the other older FPS games is while there are the momentum-based ice physics, they're not quite as like extreme as something like Dooms or Rise of the Triad or anything like that. You do slide a little bit, but it's a lot more manageable than it is in other FPS games like this. At least in my opinion. And also,
Sure, yeah.
This game is one of the few examples of games like this that don't have diagonal movement speed advantage. Like, you go as fast going forward as you do diagonally.
Yeah.
Whereas in like a game like Doom or Duke Nukem or anything like that, have things like SR40ing, which is cool, but another thing that we'd have to incorporate into the movement and such. Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, so now we're on Fuel Station. This is one of the first levels that I will mention is one of the really difficult ones. And the reason why is because between all the normal enemy spawns and the barrel locations, this level has a ton of enemy spawn potential. So this is a level we absolutely want to go into with as many lives as we can. And we're going to actually be going out of our way to take out a lot of the enemies in the hallways, because we're going to have to go back this way. And we don't want to have to deal with like too many enemies, because it'll make it almost impossible. Even if you have a bunch of extra lives, you still want to be careful.
Yeah, totally.
But this level has a bunch of hallways with a ton of barrels normally, and okay, I'm glad I went out here to get that. Revive is really helpful here. So those barrels normally would just be inconsequential, but because they are a potential enemy spawn, we have all these stormtroopers and stuff that normally aren't there. And that's on top of the large amount of enemies that are already normally in this level. So Fuel Station can get very rough very quickly if you're not careful. Especially if you have something like that. Alright, these are some incredibly immaculate Dark Trooper spawns. So I'm going to actually have to go out of my way to take out a bunch of these enemies. And this is the other part of the level that is just really difficult, is the sections here. So normally, if you're playing this on lower frame rate settings, you can jump across these platforms and it's very easy to do. But if you're playing on higher frame rate, I'm going to actually take out this Dark Trooper because he is going to potentially cause problems on the way back.
Oh no.
Alright, we're doing alright. But yeah, because of the higher frame rates, alright, that's not a big deal. I have a ton of extra lives. But because of like the extra frame rate, you can't make these jumps normally, or if you can, it's very difficult to do. So we have to use explosive jumps that are very unorthodox to actually clear the space. And that's to avoid doing this the intended way, which is very slow. You have to rotate that giant platform, hit a bunch of switches, and it's not a very fun level. So, but again, this is a level where things can get rough, and doing all those TD jumps does not help at all. So having extra lives in this level is super important.
Right.
And we gotta do 2 more in order to get to the last secret that we need to get to.
Yeah, so now that like we went and we hit a button, now Rip Chip is going to have to backtrack all the way back through those hallways and do these really difficult TD jumps to be able to get back.
Yeah, this is unfortunately one of the more awkward ones in the level, is this one right here. They're all awkward because the moving platforms don't have textures attached to them.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a revive. That's fantastic.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
And there's nothing
Nice.
useful in there, so I'm not going to drop in. Okay, I guess I am. Never mind. That's fine. Oh, there is something there. Nice. I totally already have a revive, but it's a cute consolation prize. Alright. And we're just gonna run off here. Normally we could TD jump to this, but there's already a lot going on, and we just kind of want to get out of here at this point.
Yeah. So something else to mention about the TDs, also the full name is thermal detonators, is that in this game, you throw from the right side of your player model towards the center of like the targeting reticle. So it's actually not a directly forward from like where you're looking, but it comes from the right side in. So it makes like a lot of those skips that Ripchip was doing really, really difficult, especially if you're trying to get the thermal detonator to land on a specific portion of the ground.
All right, I just barely survived that whole way. That would have been bad if I died there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like intricate camera control on top of like timing the jump and everything. It's like it's a lot more intricate than you might think from normal explosive boosting and speedrunning.
Yeah, and like if you watch somebody do it, it doesn't look that bad, but almost every major jump has some sort of visual cue or setup that you have to use to make it work.
Yeah,
that's what makes the jumps in Fuel Station so tricky, is there's not a very reliable visual cue you can use. Alright, so we're going on to Talay. Talay's interesting because this is an early game level, and because of that, we can actually do a lot of things that normally we couldn't do, like TD jumps that would save sections and seconds on other places. And if we get lucky, I'll showcase that towards the end. But we still have to be careful, and since Talay is such a small level, like, this is another level that, since we have a lot of resources, we can brute force it pretty quickly without having to worry about trying to get too many extra items. There are some areas that I would say are, like, good to check if you're getting this level early, but because, again, we are, you know, this is unfortunate. Oh my god. I got blocked when there was a Dark Trooper behind me. That's not a good place to be. Brutal. Okay, so that's also unfortunate. I'm not too worried about it, though. What I'm going to do is respawn. Just have to hit that switch one more time. And normally, like, I would have a backup strat here where I would just do a TD jump up there, which is something you can do. You can come up with all these really cool alternative strats, and I just got melted because there were two Grands right there. That was unfortunate. Grands do melee damage, and if two of them are attacking at the same time, they will attack you nonstop and make your health disappear very quickly. So I do have to be a little cautious now because I've lost a lot more lives than I wanted. This is what I get for saying this level's not too bad. But I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's randomized. You can't know what's going to happen at all, so you have to adapt. Sometimes the adaptation is just dying. And we're going to actually be a little cautious here. We're going to clear out this room as best as we can with the concussion rifle. This is why getting the concussion rifle early is very important. And then we can also do a TD jump here, which again, we normally can't do that because we don't have TDs this early in the game. And we're going to actually go off the beaten path a little bit here in case there's a 1-up down here. We got a weapon supercharge, which is still pretty good. Again, these are areas we normally would never explore doing a speedrun, but for randomization's sake and for getting as many items as we can, sometimes we'll go off the beaten path. And sometimes it's not worth it, but that's all part of the experience. But yeah, we did more TD jumps there that, again, you don't normally get to do, which is kind of a cool little factor in Randomizer. So now we're going into Arc Hammer, which is the last level in the game normally, and this level is another one of those levels that's very dangerous. If you get this level first, there's a good chance that you pretty much won't be able to finish the first level, because there's a lot of enemy spawns, and there's also a lot of closed off areas, so there is a ton of potential for danger in pretty much every run. And this is one of those levels that, because of how the item spread is, we may have to do a lot of sections the safer or intended way. Now, one of these things we have to do is kill this Phase 1 Dark Trooper, because his death is what unlocks that door. Normally, there's a very easy setup to do that, but because this is randomized, we can't really rely on that.
Yeah, so once again, chat, barrels are counted as enemies for the sake of randomization. So, like, normally we just kill that Dark Trooper by exploding the barrels all around the Dark Trooper. But because the barrels became living sentient beings, that sequence of quick kill is no longer available to us.
Alright, so we killed that Dark Trooper because that's another thing that's, if you don't know, is actually tied to level progression in this level. We have to kill him in order to get access to the first sequence charge area. And we're doing this a little bit slower because my health is very low, so I can't do all the normal TD jumping I would do here. And there's also the one thing that's difficult about Dark Hammer is Arc Hammer is that there's all these dark sections, which is why I accidentally called it Dark Hammer. I think I'm just gonna call it that from now on. Okay, we got a one up and some shields, so that's great. We can just TD jump back up here. So there's a lot of areas where it's really dark and you can't see what enemy's gonna be in the hallway, so you have to be very cautious. Luckily, though, there is a checkpoint right here that we normally don't go to because we normally skip this whole section. This is how you normally get to this area. Normally in the speedrun you do an explosive boost to get up here. Right. Turrets are another thing sometimes I haven't really mentioned that can be very dangerous. They will always either spawn on the floor or the ceiling, and turrets are dangerous because they do a lot of damage. They're fairly easy to deal with if you spot them pretty early on, but you have to be very careful, especially in areas where there's not a lot of cover. Otherwise, it's very possible you can just get hit over and over again by one.
Interesting.
Yeah, barrels and mines are both randomized in the enemy pool. I hear a Dark Trooper somewhere. That's not good. Hopefully, okay, he's not in here. All right, I'm gonna have, just barely. I thought I had enough health to make that. That's fine. That is fine.
The Dark Trooper is basically the Creeper of Minecraft is basically the Dark Trooper of Dark Forces.
Yeah, and the Gran is the chicken jockey. I don't know, whatever you kids say these days about Minecraft. Since we have been taking a lot of damage, I am gonna, again, opt to do this the safer way. Because you don't want to lose too much more health, because I don't know what's going to be in this room. But we have to get these last two secrets, which are very annoying because there's not a lot of headroom, so you can bonk and fall and miss the jumps very easily.
Right.
But yeah, in an ideal scenario, like, you want to get these harder levels, like, usually around halfway through when you have a lot of extra lives, so that they're manageable. Otherwise, Otherwise, getting through them early on can be very brutal. And then, like, the ideal scenario is getting that and then getting something like Secret Base as your last level, because that would make the run so easy. Alright, so there's a revive right down there. That's very convenient. There was two down there. So, like, if I missed one, there was another one right there. I lost almost all of it because there were a ton of enemies down there, but... Oh god, it's a mine. Okay.
Oh no.
I had to back off of that real quick. Oh, there we go. Now there's a weird little item area right here that normally we would never pay attention to, but I'm gonna just... Okay, there's nothing useful there, that's good. Sometimes you can get like one-ups and stuff there, and they're very awkward to get to, so luckily there wasn't anything important. Alright, so this next room is another area where if you get weird enemy spawns, this can be very, very rough. Luckily, it's being very generous. Normally, I believe it's a bunch of turrets in this room, but they all have been replaced by these human enemies. Alright, so we're doing this puzzle sequence right here to get to the last sequence charge. There we go.
Nice. Imagine if the puzzle sequence was randomized. That would be so cruel.
The DOS version is on Steam, that's true, and there's also, if you have the Steam version, or any of the versions of the game, you can also play it using the Force Engine source port, which is a very good source port for the game casually.
Yeah.
The reason, like I said, I use Remaster is just because it's, for one, I've been playing it a lot the most because it's a great version for speedrunning, in my opinion. But also, it's very easy to set up randomizer, and the respawn function adds a lot more, like, lenience for some of the more difficult levels. Alright, so we died there. Again, not a big deal because we still have health. Alright, there's another Dark Trooper right here. That's convenient. And having the assault cannon super important. There have been randomizer seeds I've gotten where I have not gotten the assault cannon going into this level, which is really not fun to do. Any of the levels that have the Dark Troopers, you want to have the assault cannon for, because it's just an easy way to take them out. Alrighty, so we're going to take out Mach, who is normally the final boss of the game, and even though this is the final boss, this is not the last level because it's randomized. and we will have gotten 2 of the hardest levels knocked out already, which is great. Alrighty. Next mission is in Detention Center. Detention Center has a lot of secrets. It has the most secrets in the game. I believe there is like 12 of them. And most of them are behind cracks in the wall, so they're easy to spot. But this is another level that has a lot of closed off areas, so we have to be very careful. There's an extra life right off the bat, that's nice. There's a lot of enemies that we don't want to run into in the areas we have to go. Like, there's cramped areas that we hopefully won't see a Dark Trooper in, or Boba Fett for that matter. Surely it would be terrible if that happened.
Yeah.
And like I said, because the item pool is based on the number of enemies that exist in the game by default, there is one Boba Fett in this entire map, or in this entire game, other than the one that's at the beginning of Imperial City. So it is entirely possible we will run into Boba Fett, and if we do, it's not a good experience, because Boba Fett's a very dangerous enemy.
Yeah.
And a fun thing, this is just talking about other content in Dark Forces. Fun thing, oh my god, he just shot the Trandoshan with a rocket. That's so messed up. Why? Alright.
Use your friend!
You guys are working for the same person, like, what the hell? Anyway, I don't even remember what I was saying anymore. Damn it. Alright. Anyways, this is one of those areas early on, like, that there's a couple secrets we have to get, and this is a very closed off area, so the other dangerous part about this particular area is that all the walls deflect blaster shots, so if you're not careful with your shots, you can accidentally hit yourself and take a very disgusting amount of unintentional damage. And since I died in the previous room, I didn't hit the checkpoint because I was in the elevator, which is unfortunate, but again, it's just there was a lot going on in there and I wasn't able to figure that out right away. But there's a one up there, so that's good.
Oh, that's good.
Now, normally there's a bunch of, there's several mines in front of these areas, and again, since they can be swapped out with regular enemies, there is a good chance that, you know, we won't see mines there. We won't see what we expect.
Yeah. It's easy to forget also, like, at this stage, like, this far into the run, that, like, at one point we had... Yeah, nice. That we had, like, over 8 lives, chat, right? And then we went all the way back down to, like, 2 or 3 lives.
And part of that is, again, just being, you know, trying to brute force your way through a level, but also part of it is just bad luck.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, this is why, like, RipTip is, like, taking all these extra measures to just make sure that they do check all these extra areas to just try and see if they can get those 1-ups, because that, as a resource, is, like, really important for consistently being able to work through the randomizer itself.
Oh, shoot, I missed a secret area. I gotta go back.
Oh, no.
It's not a big deal. I can find it. I normally throw a TD at the wall, and I missed it, apparently. That's wonderful. Alright. Anyways, we got all the secrets in this area, which means now we can go back to the beginning area, which is going to lead to the big sequence break in this level, because there is a secret area that normally is... It's a developer-intended secret area, mind you, that lets you skip getting the red key. And that already alone is a lot of backtracking and stuff that you don't have to do. Mm-hmm. But this is another level where there is a key code that you need to figure out, and that's how you get to the main objective, which is rescuing Crix Nadine. Now, the thing is, when you casually play the game, there are 6 different codes that you have to collect in order to get to the one that actually gets you to Crix Nadine. So it's a very lengthy level casually, but because we can skip the red key and all the other key cards, we can effectively get to the end of the level very quickly after we get all the secrets. And also shoutouts to these horrifying faces in the sewer. They just look like you never really get to pay attention to what they look like in DOS because they're so pixelated, but they are just unsettling. It's like the face texture in Doom.
Yeah. It's all the previous speedrunners who lost runs to this level.
Alrighty, so we're at the end, just gotta put in the code. And we got a couple of extra lives, which is great. Because there's still one more mission that is really difficult. And now we're going on to this level, which is very broken. So, Muffin, if you want to explain how this level works.
Yeah, so basically on the other side of this wall, there's going to be an enemy. It may or may not be Boba Fett. Usually in the normal playthrough it is. And so
this is one of those levels, real quick, that is one of the enemies that's not swapped for logic reasons. So that is Boba Fett.
Oh, okay, great. It is Boba Fett. Okay. Yeah, so basically, normally you have to go all the way through the level and like do all of these puzzles and like stuff like that and like activate switches. And then you're like, okay, it's time to leave. We finished our mission. And then like, surprise, nope, Boba Fett's there waiting for you as you try to escape, and then you have to do this epic boss battle. But instead, Boba Fett just like starts there immediately at the start of the level. He's just behind the door. So using the splash damage from the mines, we can actually just kill Boba Fett, and like that allows us to end the mission. But because Rip Chip is running all secrets, they are still going to run around the level and like activate those secrets.
And if you're wondering why I'm killing all these enemies, it's just because there's entirely too many of them, and they will get in the way. So one other thing about Boba Fett and what makes it so unique is the fact that it's the only level in the game that has a sequence break that massive. And because I say that because normally the levels, the way they're structured is you have to do different objectives, and that basically moves an objective elevator upward. And once it gets to a certain point, then you hit the conditions that say the mission is complete. And the reason why Boba Fett works the way he does is because there is a condition attached to the area that triggers that cutscene at the end that is missing like a requirement for how to activate it. And that allows you to basically rapid fire the use key, and it allows you to cycle through that elevator instantly. And it allows you to not have to do any of the other objectives. So in a normal any percent playthrough, you would be done once Boba Fett's dead. But again, we have to get secrets, and there is a little bit of, going out of the way to get there. Now, I want to mention this level has a very cool way to get the last secret, but for randomizer, it is not safe to do at all. And it requires you doing a really cool double mine jump to boost up this entire building. But again, because we're doing a randomizer run and we don't want to lose any more life or anything like that, we are going to opt to not do that.
Yeah. Google Rip Chip's AGDQ run that they did at this past GDQ if you want to see that sequence break.
Yeah, not to toot my own horn, but like the fact that I got that strat and literally came up with it a week before AGDQ was pretty dope.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
I also want to mention another toot to my horn. I recently just got sub 20 minutes in any percent for Dark Forces Remaster. So it's the first time I've gotten sub 20 minutes, but it's also the first time it's been done on Remaster, so that's pretty big for me.
Yeah, that's massive.
Not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty awesome. Anyways,
we're
at the end of the level.
Shoot that for you.
And that little area is another jackpot area. We did not get a whole lot of useful items out of it. We got a lot of shields, but not the things that I wanted. So, anyways, now we're on to Secret Base. This is normally the first level of the game. And this is one of those levels that's honestly very, very easy the further along you get through the randomizer seed. Because you can do things like TD jump up here to skip having to ride an elevator. It's very small, but very cool. You can technically mine jump to the top of the shaft there to get to the main objective, but it's not really worth it to do it when you're getting all secrets. There's a lot of like really cool strats that are not going to ever be used that are fun, but really not practical.
Yeah.
Alright, so there is our main objective, the Death Star plans, because we are the ones who got the Death Star plans to help the rebels, not whoever that Andor guy is or whatever his name is.
I guess, like, lore-wise, technically, we get half of them and they get the other half or something like that. But
yeah, they're just gonna be like, oh yeah, by the way, it was split into 2 parts. Alright, so we're gonna go up here. We already did one TD jump, we don't need to do another one, but we're just collecting the last few secrets. And one thing I didn't mention, and this is the perfect place to talk about it, is in speedrunning for all secrets, there's a couple levels where we actually get all the objectives done before we collect the secrets, because the mission is only over once you decide it's over. Once you've completed the objectives, you get a prompt, and you can exit the level anytime you want. So
anywhere.
Yeah, so this level in particular, it's faster to just beat the objectives and then get all the secrets. And it's like reasonably faster. I think it's like 30 seconds faster to do it than to get the secrets and then finish the level. Alright, so now we're on a Jabba's ship. This is one of the levels that is also very scary depending on what we get at the beginning of the level. Because at the beginning of Jabba's ship, you lose all your gear. That is not randomized whatsoever. Alright, this is very bad that I got an interrogation droid here too, because now I have to deal with Spike here and his buddy and this thing here. And the thing is, we have to kill this one specific Kel Dragon in order to access this area. Now, we could get very lucky if there's a Gran here and we can TD jump up here, but we did not, which means we are going to have to do something very slow and tedious in order to get to the blue key card, which is one of those things with randomizer that kind of sucks. So the way this works, there's a switch here that lifts up a little area that gets you to the blue key card area. And whenever enemies cross over certain areas in this section, it lowers that. So the thing is, they want you to kill the enemies, so you have to do as much as possible in order to get to, you know, the area. And, God, this is so annoying. I can not hit this thing.
There we go, there we go.
There we go. So yeah, we're having to actually go out of our way to kill these enemies, because there is no way to get up here without them being dead. Alright, so now that we've done that, and again, if we get lucky and like a Gran spawns at the beginning, we get TDs and we can skip doing that, but we can't do that here in this situation, so it is what it is. Alright, I backed off there because there was a mine. I'm still probably going to die because I have 2 health, but there's a secret here. Oh, it's a revive. That would have been really nice like 5 seconds ago. Alright. If I had brute forced my way through this, I would have been fine. Alright, so now we have all our gear back, thankfully. Normally this level is a lot easier on all secrets because you get a shield supercharge which lets you blitz through this first half of the level very easily. Because we don't have that, we kind of have to adapt on the fly, deal with all these enemies. And normally there's mines all over this floor. But again, they can be swapped out for regular enemies, which is the case of what happened here. And another funny thing is with hard difficulty, these doors that we're about to go through, there's mines on the other sides of them, and because there is a potential, they are considered an enemy spawn area, there's a potential that an enemy will just be on the other side of the door and be stuck in place. So we're actually going to use the concussion rifle here. Oh my god, there's a dark trooper there. That's not good. That's going to take a second.
I was gonna say, it's like almost certainly there's gonna be multiple dark troopers.
And there was a mine I got blindsided by. Alright, that's fine. Again, this level can be very unforgiving. Alright, so we gotta get this red key in order to get to the next area. There's a lot of really funny things that can happen with the enemy spawns. And I say funny in the sense that, like, it's funny if you get to watch it and not actually experience it firsthand. Yeah. Like, there's definitely, in Fuel Station, there's some stairways that have enemy spawns that sometimes will be mines that you get blindsided by. We're just doing TD jumps here to get these secret areas. We're almost at the end of the game, so we are trying to get through this as quickly as possible. And we do have to be a little careful, unfortunately, because we only have 2 lives. We don't have the extra lives that we normally would want here. But like I said, we're through a majority of the really difficult sections, so luckily we don't have to worry about too much going forward. I love the punch sound effect, it's great.
It is the best, yeah.
It sounds extremely really crunchy if you play the PlayStation 1 version, though. It's like the sound of somebody punching a plastic trash can. It's great.
I love it when you get like a weapon supercharged with the punch.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. You just like, you turn into, what's his face, Jotaro from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Alright. So we're getting these areas, and these secrets can sometimes have like 1 or 2 helpful items. That was unfortunate. That's again, fine. 1 life is good. We only have a few more dangerous sections in this level to worry about, and there's shields here, so that helps.
Nice.
But I'm not going to go too out of my way to get stuff again, because we are so close to the end. Did I pick up the blue card? I didn't. Okay, good thing I backtracked there.
Yeah, good call.
And when you do things like die and stuff when there's a randomizer setting, sometimes it's easy to forget the most important, like, basic stuff in the levels.
Oh,
so you do have to be really cautious. Sometimes you actually have to do things out of the in normal order too. Like, especially if it's early on and you don't have all the TDs and stuff that you need. So it's important to remember what you have and haven't done for the arbitrary rule I have attached for collecting all the secrets. Alrighty, so now we're going on to the last section, which has the last secret, which is a very odd secret area, to put it lightly. It's just a secret that I don't know how the average person is supposed to figure out what they're supposed to do. We're gonna clear out this room because there's so many, you know, there's enemies. We don't want to take damage. And unfortunately, my health is low. Hopefully this will not pose a problem. If so, we still have one extra life, which is nice. Alright, that's fine. Again, we have one life. We can get the secret. If worse comes to worse, I'll just opt out of not giving the secret. It's not a big deal. But I do need to clear this area out. Alright, so now we rescued Jan. I'm gonna do this with a mine, because it's the easiest way to do it. You can do it with a TD jump as well, but I'll focus here. There we go, okay, cool. And then we get the last secret, which has literally nothing. And that's it, time. We have finished every level in a randomized order in 52 minutes and 56 seconds on the hardest difficulty with all secrets. That was a pretty standard seed. There were a couple of levels that were rough, and there are always going to be levels where if things don't go ideally, it's going to take longer than usual. Like if you don't get grenades at the or TDs at the beginning of Javas, that's pretty bad. But that was fun. Covert Muffin, this was your first time sitting through a randomizer. What was the experience like for you?
I absolutely loved it. I was laughing so hard at how many Dark Troopers you got early game. That was absolutely hilarious.
But yeah, if you guys want to try it out, the program you can use for the randomizer is called Dark Forces Showcase. Getting it set up is a little bit of work, and there's a lot of settings to play around with. But if you ever have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'm happy to give insight on that. And shoutouts to my boy Revan, who is the person who told me about the randomizer back in the, a few months ago, and I have been hooked on it, on top of like doing the regular speedruns for this game. But thanks everybody for watching, and everyone, I hope you enjoy the rest of Kessel Run. There's still a ton of really cool runs coming up today, and thank you to Retro Gaming Live for having me for this event. I am always happy to be part of it. And anything else you want to say, Muffin, before we get out of here?
And we don't just speedrun the randomizer, folks. Like, there's so many different iterations of Dark Forces and stuff, but like our community's like super tight. Everybody's super welcoming, super friendly, as I hope you witness in like all these amazing Star Wars performances that have been showcased for the Kessel Run at this awesome marathon. If you're interested in trying out Dark Forces or maybe one of the other Jedi Knight games, head on over to speedrun.com/darkforces, and there's going to be a Discord link right by sort of the logo underneath the title. Just click on that, join the Discord, and just say hi. And even if you're not interested in like speedrunning a full game, but you want to like try out the randomizer, that's an excellent place to just like ask questions and find out help, or just like have somebody point you in the right direction. But yeah, thank you so much, Kessel Run, for having us, and Rip Chip, thank you so much for having me on the couch. Great job, man.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, before we leave, I do want to show one more thing. One more fun little thing that I didn't get to earlier. Let's find, where's research at? There is a area that is an Easter egg that's not counted as a secret. And it would not be fair for me to not showcase this if you've never seen this before. A lot of people know about this. So there's a secret area on the map that has a invisible wall. And you're supposed, the way the developers want you to get there is by using cheats. Since speedrunning is, literally cheating, we can use different methods to do that. This wall right here, you'll see the texture is slightly misaligned.
Oh, yeah.
There's no collision attached to it. And we're gonna do a TD jump to get to it. There's this neat little area. What's behind the door, you might ask? It is a little Ewok. And he's making fun of us right now. I don't like that, so I'm just gonna punch him so hard that he gets cooked. And then, so that was just, it's a legal requirement for me to showcase that whenever I do all secrets. So, again, thanks everybody for watching, and enjoy the rest of the marathon.